in Korea in 1950. During the Korean War, more than 3,000 troops developed high fevers and kidney failure. About 400 died. Doctors called it hantavirus because it was traced back to Korea's Hantan River. That region was home to large numbers of striped field mice. Feces and urine from infected mice carried the virus. When it dried out, it became airborne and was then inhaled by the soldiers. From there, the virus attacked the kidneys. But investigators were uncertain whether this was the same as the Four Corners virus. There had never been a hantavirus reported in North America, and the Four Corners disease attacked the lungs, not the kidneys.
I had no idea what hantavirus was. And looked in my textbook, which had a very short section on it. And of course it describes a disease that occurs in Asia, which sounded nothing like what we were dealing with.
Was this the same disease? And if so, how did it travel from Korea to a North American Indian reservation? CDC investigators then remembered what they'd been told by the Navajo traditional healers.
The medicine men had said when a remarkably wet winter was followed by the masting of the pinon trees, when the pinon trees put out an abundant supply of nuts, the rodent populations in the state began to grow. And when that happened, Navajo died.
Investigators caught and tested deer mice from the Four Corners area. They found the mice were shedding a virus with the same DNA profile as the virus found in Florina woodi and Merrill Bahi. But the DNA profile of this virus was not identical to the Korean hantavirus. Although the DNA profiles were similar, the strain from the Navajo reservation was a new one, unique to North America.
What we found when we did the comparison was that this was a new hantavirus. That is, the sequence was far enough from any other known hantavirus that we were convinced that it was a new virus. It wasn't just a minor variant on one of the old viruses.
CDC scientists and Navajo medicine men suspected the North American hantavirus had been around for centuries, but since the cases were so isolated, it had always been misdiagnosed. The Navajo made up a greater percentage of the victims only because they lived in more rural areas with large deer mice populations. In the 2 years before the outbreak, heavy spring rains created a bumper crop of pinon nuts, a rich source of food for the growing mice population. Authorities believe that Merrill Bahi and Florina woodi inhaled the dried urine and fecal matter from the infected deer mice when they were house cleaning or digging in their garden.
In my heart, I think it was God's will that this is what was supposed to happen to both of them. And they were meant for each other, and they were meant to go together.
Health officials recommend that masks and gloves be worn when cleaning rodent droppings, and that people do everything possible to keep rodents out of their homes. They also point out that the Four Corners outbreak was identified through the wisdom of the Navajo medicine men and the scientists who were smart enough to listen.
We were discovering an old disease that the traditional healers had discovered long ago. And that was I think to me, that was the most exciting thing about this whole investigation.
The Navajo, using an entirely different approach, looking at the balance of nature, were able to identify factors that led them to the same conclusion, that when rodent populations explode the way they did in the Four Corners in the spring of 1993, young Navajo died. These two very different sets of people set out on very different paths and arrived in the same place.